This meeting is being recorded.
And good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Dutch Mentor Leadership Academy cohort number 2. Today we are joined by our cohort team members from both Phelps Memorial Hospital, from Montefiore, and several other healthcare systems. I've invited, as I always do in the first session, other people who are still thinking about it or contemplating to joining a cohort either today or into the future. So welcome everybody on a Wednesday afternoon. This will be our time frame from 4:30 to 6 o'clock for the next 15 weeks to be consistent. All of our sessions will be recorded, so please be aware of that. If we ever get into a Q&A session, I tend to turn off the recording. For all of our Academy students, the information, all of the videos and audio will be available to you immediately after class, usually an hour or two after. I'll be posting that on our Thinkific platform. I'll explain in a few minutes what that is. So you can look at it at your leisure if for some reason or another you cannot make it to class. And of course, most of you will be working in healthcare. We know it is crazy times with COVID and with work shortages and all the other things. So quite understand the pressures that you have on you. So again, no big deal if you miss a class. You can go back and look at the recording itself and catch up. And of course, on a weekly basis, I will be spending time with each one of you for at least 30 minutes in a one-to-one session that you will be scheduling on a weekly basis to make sure that you understand the materials and continue to work on the action items in the class itself. So again, that bought me a couple of minutes of to get the ball rolling. Again, good afternoon and welcome. I'm really excited to get cohort number 2 off the ground. We just completed our first cohort after 15 weeks with 15 people. And it went better than even I had expected. I expected some bumps along the way, but we really had a great time together. I got to know each individual on a very deep level, and really saw changes take place over a 15-week period. I will say that my goal is, and as you can see on the screen over here, that my mission in life is to help people develop and nourish up and coming leaders or current leaders in developing their skills, knowledge, and abilities to become highly effective servant leaders who are going to be in a position to not only lead people from the best perspective with a servant heart, how to solve problems, and then later on, of course, how to facilitate people to solve problems, and then how to put it actually into action. Now, I deeply believe that nothing that I can say today you can do tomorrow. It takes time to absorb the information. It takes time to process the information, and then to actually put it into action. And that's where I want to be different from anything that you have probably experienced prior to. I don't want to be another speaker or another lecturer or another webinar or conference you attend. And the reason why that is that somebody gave it to me as an example some time ago. It's like going to the movies. We enjoy the movie while it lasts. It is great entertainment and very informative. But a week after the movie, you don't remember the characters or the lines, or we rarely take away things that we put into action. So our program from day one is going to be different from going to the movies. So it is about working together by taking a deep dive into yourself, raising self-awareness, making assessments, doing a couple of quick surveys, and then putting things into action, to actually doing things. And by doing it over and over and over, you'll start creating these new habits and behaviors. And one thing we know from a human psychological standpoint, to change us as people takes time. So I want to start off, before we get into any of the materials today, with a simple exercise, except for Robert because he's driving, but he can do it. He can do it in the air. So I would love for people to turn on the cameras. That is one behavior that in the new world of Zoom meetings, we go to meetings and then we sit on our telephones and we do emails and we do whatever else. And I've learned that if we are on camera, and we're keeping the eyeballs straight out, and you keep yourself accountable. So I'm not here. And I'm not here to hold you accountable. I really, from day one, I want you to feel that you are self-accountable. That you say, listen, I'm going to commit 90 minutes per week to really be focused on this. Turn off my emails, turn off my telephone, turn it over just like I have. Ignore what happens in the next 90 minutes. You live in the now. I promise you will get that much more out of it. Now, if you're really resistant to the camera, that's your choice you make, but we'd love to see all your smiling faces, and it's great to see on the screen right now. So as a quick exercise, I would like you to have a pen in hand, and I see that Candace already is ready to go with a pen and a piece of paper. And I would like you to put your pen in your dominant hand. And to give it a quick feeling of what it feels like to go through a transformation or a change, I want you to write down your first name and last name on a piece of paper 5 times. And then I would love to hear from you what that is like. Tell me what it feels like to write your first name and last name on a piece of paper. Again, we try to make the program as interactive, so the discussion is encouraged. A good joke is always welcome. But what does it feel like, David? What does it feel like when you write down your first and last name with your dominant hand? You're on mute. But
there we go.
Hey.
I mean, I guess it gives you some sort of power, feeling, writing your name. There's purpose to it.
Very good. You feel it. Does it flow? Is it like natural? Is it something you don't have to think about?
Yeah.
And Candace or Andrea, how do you feel about writing your first name, last name?
Very easy.
Easy, right? All right.
Yeah.
Well, transformation. Very good, Andrea. So transformation is rarely easy. We know that, right? We in healthcare, especially, we go to change management all of the time. So take that same pen now, put it into your opposite hand. Now I would like you to write your first name and last name 5 more times. Go to the process of doing that, and really focus on that. Feel the experience of writing your first name, last name a few times with your non-dominant hand.
It's uncomfortable.
Yeah, right. Does it look pretty?
Not at all.
No.
Now, do we all agree that it's kind of ugly?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it kind of feels awkward?
Uh-huh.
Well, change management, right? Behavior change is the same thing for your brain. Now, what is one thing that if I never mention writing with your non-dominant hand again, what are you going to do as a human being?
Automatically write with my dominant hand.
Ah. Do you think that holds true with any process that we're going to talk about in the classroom over the next 15 weeks? That if I only bring it up one time and you never do anything with it, that you will go right back to the way you've always done it?
Yep.
And that is the rotten truth of our brains, right? Our brains are very complex, but at the same time, very simple. They will likely resort to the least resistance. So they will go back to what they know best. So to go through change, we literally have to convince ourselves that there is a better way of doing it. Now, in healthcare, as you know, in highly regulated industry, rules are changed all of the time. So we are forced to change. But we also have to be respectful and really think about it. To change takes time. So if we are being told by the government, by a regulatory agency, that we now have to write with our non-dominant hands, and if not, all of your CMS dollars are going to be pulled. In other words, you don't get paid anymore. Well, we better start learning to write it with that non-dominant hand. Now, do you think that everybody is going to adopt in the same way, in the same speed?
No.
Right. So that takes great leadership on your part, and many different levels of motivation to get people to conform. Now, do you think it is helpful if I tell people it needs to be done because I say so?
No.
Or is it better if I do it through context and I explain why it needs to be done, even though it's very difficult to explain?
Through context.
Do you think through context, right? Do you think it is that people will do well if I tell them, if you don't do this, then you're going to be punished. I'm going to write you up. Right? So we want to really go to the concept being as gentle as possible, but as firm as we need to be. So change management is really about behavior management. Now, there's a simple equation that I use, and you'll hear me talk about these things all of the time, for the simple fact that if I talk about it a lot of time, I'm trying to get it to be part of your deep brain, so to speak. An equation called E times R equals O. And I want you to remember that. I want you to even write that down on a Post-it note. And I want you to really keep that concept. So E times R equals O stands for events will happen in life. Events happen all of the time around us, in our relationships, at work, on the way to work and from work, right? There will be outcomes of those life events. It is how good the outcome depends on if you are responding to something or if you're reacting to something. Which one is better, reacting or responding?
Responding.
Yes, but as human beings, do we tend to react or respond?
React.
Yeah, and why is that? Why do we react to things rather than respond to things?
It's easier and takes less thought. So
right, exactly right. It is natural to us, especially in healthcare. We are firefighters, right? We see a fire, we go out, we put it out, and we don't put a lot of thought. But the fire is out, but then we go on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. But we don't fix our problems at the root cause. We don't really get a deep understanding of why it took place to fix it and to improve upon it, and then walk away from it knowing that it's less likely or unlikely you have to go back again. How many times have you gone back to the same problem over and over and over? And didn't Einstein say doing the same thing over and over and over is what?
Insanity.
Insanity.
Exactly. But we do it all of the time, right? And that's the change that I want to bring throughout the program, right? If you want different outcomes, we have to take different actions. And those actions shouldn't be reactive, but they should be responsive, right? And responsive requires exactly what Andrea was just talking about. It requires you to put some thought into it. Now, remember that responding does not need to be over days or weeks. It can be done in seconds, but at least you have to go through the processing. And part of the A3 thinking that I will be teaching in the weeks to come will really help set a foundation on how to do process thinking in the moment, right? In seconds, minutes, hours, or over an extended period of time that will lead to better outcomes. Now, why do 80% of our projects fail?
Time management.
Time management, what else?
Follow through.
Follow through,
Planning.
planning,
Lack of proper input.
input, very big one too.
for lack of experience.
Lack of experience. So all of you are right. Okay, Christine, you were going to say something? Maybe so. Yeah, all of you are right. The key thing is failure to take action. It's as simple as that. We fail to take action. So strategic planning especially in healthcare, pre-COVID was done usually on a 3 to 6 year basis, right? There's long-term out thinking. They come up with a whole list of strategies. And then even some people would say we have actions to the strategies. But if you really go back and are really honest with yourself and you go reevaluate on a yearly basis or every 5 years on how well you did against executing the strategies, not very good. Because we are such firefighters that we tend to take, we react to things, we don't take appropriate action with sustained effort to change habits and behaviors. So those things that we actually want to put into place are in place. Short of regulatory requirements, because of course, in healthcare, funding is attached to regulatory requirements. So we tend to follow through in that, but not necessarily always the right way, the best way, or the most efficient way. So it is the three things that that in the program that you will learn is people leading skills, right? It starts with yourself and then leading the people. It's about learning how to solve problems at the root cause. and then how to take action on an individual team environment, supported by what we call behavior smarts to get a much deeper understanding of self and how to respond to things and everything in life. And then I'll finish the course up with 1 day, 1 session around financial planning and budgeting. Every week, there will be a lunch and learn session on Friday at 12 o'clock. And you are always invited. You can bring your team members with you. You can forward the link to anybody else. In the next week or two, likely we're going to be hosting that at the same time every week on LinkedIn Live as well. We will be talking about a topic that is relevant to the subject area that we are studying in the classwork, in the coursework itself. And I will bring in some outside speakers. We're going to have some areas that we will explore outside of the classroom that I consider part as the sub-basement. In order to grow a good crop, what do we need first? And the goal here is to develop really strong leaders of the future, right? Or to develop your skills that you have today to the next level up, so you can truly lead at your level of privilege, at the top of your license, so to speak. What is it, before you put a seed into the ground, what do you need first?
The ground.
It's soil.
Yeah.
But what does the soil need in order to grow a seed?
Nutrients.
Nutrients, right? So in human beings have 4 pillars that we consider as nutrients. If those 4 are not in balance, that seed will never become as strong as it potentially can be. And those 4 pillars are your mental wellness, your spiritual wellness, your physical wellness, and your relationship wellness. So throughout the program and our 30-minute one-to-one sessions on a weekly basis, we will always talk a little bit about those 4 pillars. So we're doing a check-in to see how well you are balancing life on those 4 pillars in order to build that foundation, right? And the foundation is the pure leadership model, right? The learning to lead with confident humility, being responsible, learning how to motivate with fierce resolve, and how to build these genuine partnerships. Before we start building walls and interior decorating, that's the people, the process solving, and the team building, and the behavior smarts, and then we learn how to pay for it on the back end. That's how we're going to build our house. And that is the exciting part of it. You really should feel that by the end of the program that you have set up a new routine for yourself, that you will have these check marks and check places. So I'll talk about a couple of things that you need to put into place soon. And I see that Darlene in the background over there, you already have your board up on the wall. Huddle boards will be part of your success story here. Developing personal scorecards is something you will be starting to do very soon. And I have examples for all of that. I'll explain all of it. But these are all things that will be part and parcel of the course, because that's how you measure your performance. And there's one adage that if you measure performance, performance will improve. Now, interesting enough, in healthcare, because the Joint Commission tells us we have to do this, we are evaluated once a year. Now, in some organizations, maybe a second time. But it's not really something that we want to do. We are kind of forced to do this evaluation on an annual basis. And we really don't put all our heart and soul into it. We just kind of go through the motion, and we don't really have these robust conversations with our team members. Very few organizations have a talent review process over top of that, where they identify the high performer, high potential employees and put them onto special tracks. Now, lots of hospitals, lots of healthcare systems and outside have programs, but how to utilize those programs is, there's something left to be desired. There's a lot of opportunity for improvement in there as well. Again, here we're not talking about systems. I'm really going to focus on what you as an individual can do. Again, my goal is that if you learn these things, if I plant this seed and we nourish it and we flourish, and we build a strong root system with it, and have this seed explode above the ground and develop this great servant leader, that you will pay that forward going going into the future itself. Does that make sense? All right. Again, what I call a safe environment, I'll take that away as from Alcoholics Anonymous. Who you see here, what you see here, let it stay here. There are often people coming in and out of the classroom from other systems. So the advisory board members are always welcome to stop by and listen in. I have people from different parts of the country. So we try to have open dialogue about whatever takes place. The respect to each other is that we keep it between us, right? My recordings will not be available to the public. And if I go to a Q&A session, I tend to turn off the recording itself. Okay. So the question here is that, let me just double check this recording. Yes. So I'll read the mission statement to make sure that everything I just said was inclusive. And if not, you can hold me honest to that. So I truly imagine a world where our emerging leaders are inspired and supported to become highly effective servant leaders with the skills, knowledge, and abilities to meet today's complex issues. We focus on changing behaviors and habits to drive outcomes in engagement and quality, safety, growth, and transformation. So essentially speaking, that is my why statement. That's my personal mission statement. Now, all of you, and one of the items you will be working on for next week, we're going to dive deeper into that. You will start developing your personal why statement. What is your connection to the work that you do? What is your purpose and passion? What is it, why is it that you do what you do every day? And we will not just, one time present this. We will learn how to articulate this, how to have the opportunity to stand on the on an elevator with Michael Dowling, and he says, "Hey, who are you?" I say, "I'm Andrea," and you're statement that you can explain who you are, what you do, why you do it, and how you do it to make an impact on the receiver. So it's more or less that's a why statement, or it's a brand statement, right? If you want to look at it in a great clip, start with the why from Simon Sinek, and it's a YouTube clip. Again, we'll talk a little bit more about that in the program. It's a great starting point to developing your why. All these things are done over a period of time, right? You start big with 3 or 4 minute speech, and then you can learn how to compact that and make sure that every word has meaning to it until you get it right. And then it needs to come from your heart. Right, you start writing it first and reading it second, and then you're going to condense it. But it really is important for it to come out of your heart. Servant leaders speak from the heart. One thing, if anybody who knows me, I can go in front of 2 people or 200 people or 2,000 people. I could never prepare notes because I could never say the same thing exactly right, the same way. Why? Because I feel it needs to come from my heart, not just from my head or a piece of paper. It makes it more genuine, so to speak. And that's part of the growing that you'll do in the program itself. Your public speaking, participating in dialogue and conversation will improve, right? Because we're going to encourage you to give some insight to what it is that you're doing. So that's an example of a why statement. So we can do it is 4:54. So we have until 5:15 to finish up portion 1. There is a lesson that I will show everybody to get your thinking about your journey. It's called an individual development plan. It's a short PowerPoint presentation to kind of get the juices flowing and give you something to do for the week. As you get access to our Thinkific platform later today, and again, I want all of you to email me one time just saying I received it, I'm in. So I make sure that as I put it into the Thinkific platform, that I have the right email that you will be using. Some people like to use their work emails. Other people use their personal emails. I'm okay with either. I just need you to tell me what it is that you will be using. I'll set that up tomorrow morning. You'll get an invite from Thinkific to set up your own password, and then you have access to the entire program. What I want to make sure that you don't go out and run. Don't make this a sprint. There is a ton of information and materials there, but there's no need to get ahead. There's no need to look at all of the PowerPoint presentations or video clips or information. Information can be quite overwhelming. And going back to school for some of you who might have not been in school in quite some time is overwhelming to start off with, right? So I want you to take a real deep breath and just say, let it come to you. This is not about drinking from a fire hydrant, although sometimes it will feel like that, right? But I want you to take bite-sized pieces. It's far more important to me for you to really bite into it and taste everything, all of it, than to just get a sense of what it is that you have in front of you and move through the materials that quickly. So again, the word of caution, there's no need to go through the program itself. I'll guide you through the entire process. You will have access to the material long after the class is over with. And I will, I always say is that once you're part of the Dutch Mentor family, you will be part of the family until you choose to leave. You'll have access to the materials. You'll be part of my my daily communication chain. So as of probably tomorrow or Friday, you will start getting a daily Harvard Business Review tip of the day that gives you some food for thought, something to discuss with your team or to take into consideration. Not always actionable, but just kind of like part of learning about leadership and insights. I'll share books and video clips along the way. Not that you have to take action on all of them, but you just, you pick and choose what you want to see and read about, right? It's part of continuous learning and development of who you are as a leader, right? It is, on the end of the day, as a leader, not only do you have to lead people, but you also have to pay it forward, right? So everything that they give to you, I encourage you to share forward to your teams. Now, all of you are a slightly different level of management, right? We might have supervisors, might have direct managers, the directors, senior directors, and that's perfectly fine. We are all on a journey, and I'll talk about that when we talk about the individual development plan. We're going to, design a map that works for you, so it's very individualized. That's part of the reason that I don't want to just meet with you 90 minutes for once a week. I meet that 30 minutes on a one-to-one basis, so we can really individualize your journey, and we can speak between the two of us in a non-recorded, format to talk about your obstacles in the way. And trust me, I've heard lots of stories already of bosses that are not very good and that I have difficulty with. Well, we work our way through that. We can, you set the stage of what you want to talk about, as I will bring up topics where you can learn how to be accountable. All right, so that's really that kind of the expectation. Now, the big question, of course, is that how much time is this going to take? In the ideal world, I would encourage you to always attend the Wednesday session for 90 minutes. So on your calendar, pencil out for the next 15 weeks, 16 weeks, from 4:30 to 6 o'clock, and try not to have anybody, in that space. Make sure you get 15 minutes before. So schedule yourself from 4 to 6 open, so you can properly prepare and be mindfully present from 4:30 to 6. Again, if you can't, it's okay. It's recorded. You can look at it the next time. But that should be your base. In the Thinkific platform, as you go into it, there will be an option to schedule a one-to-one meeting. Now, last cohort, I allowed them all to schedule their own meetings whenever it was convenient to them, and they did it on a weekly basis. But it was very disruptive, and too often things didn't quite work out, so they end up rescheduling. Can I encourage all of you to go into that and create a 15 or 30-minute slot for yourself? First come first basis. Of course, if you take something, you won't be able to take it as well. And pencil it in for the next 15, 16 weeks. And you pick a time that works for you. So generally speaking, I'm always open from 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. I certainly, if you say this, I really can't, I really would want to do it at from 7:30 to 8 or from 8 to 8:30. I'm perfectly fine with that. You want to do it in early evening hours and still work as a paramedic on the street? I'll work with you to make it happen. If you on occasion want to do it on a weekend, I'm perfectly fine with that too. Right? So, but it is important to get into the mindset that you want this session once a week for 30 minutes. There's a lot of value in that. Right? That's where you get to go really deep into the issues, and that's how we can cement things into place. And then the last part is the 30-minute Friday, 12 noon. And the reason why I call it a lunch to learn, if you make it a habit, right, once a week for 30 minutes, you come with your lunch break. The camera on is optional. Certainly the sound off so I don't get hungry during the presentation, and listen to you crunch, and to listen in and participate in the discussion. Again, if you can't, it will be recorded, will be posted in the resource section of the Thinkific platform, and you just go back at a later time and listen to it at your leisure. The good thing about Thinkific, it works on your telephone, Android and Apple. It works on your iPad. It works on a desktop computer. So if you commute an hour back and forth, you can certainly dial it up into your phone, your Bluetooth, and have it come across your speakers and listen back to what we presented. Some people are, you need to really absorb it 2 or 3 times or listen to it before it really settles in. Then you have that option, right? You have unlimited access to that. So how to succeed, it comes down to this, is that in order to get something, you have to put something into it, right? Nothing comes for free in this world. And so the more that you say that, again, that's that habit building, that say, I am going to commit myself to 90 minutes of lecture time or discussion time, 30 minutes of lunch time, 30 minutes of on a weekly basis, and I will take 15 minutes a day to work on the subject areas that we're going to be discussing in the classroom itself. I think that if you hold yourself to that, then that should be ample enough time to really get the most out of the program. Now, some of you will say this, I'd rather do 4 hours on a Saturday morning and crunch it all the time. Remember, our adult brain can barely handle 20 minutes of information. So we are literally talking now for 30 minutes. The reason why I put a little exercise in between, we're going to do one more in a second, because I want your brain to walk away from it. You don't stop listening or hearing things after about 20-25 minutes. All of our talks throughout it are in 45-minute sessions. So 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes of talking, 15 minutes hopefully of discussion, and then we'll do it and repeat figuring of a separate subject. So you as a student will do much better in shorter increments than crunching it all into one session once a week. Without a doubt, somebody will have a baby, somebody will have a car accident, somebody will have COVID. We're here together, right? We're here to support you. If you miss 2 to 3 weeks because of unforeseen issues, again, you can listen to the recording. You can reschedule your one-to-ones. I don't watch the clock when we do one-to-ones. The only thing that holds me back, if somebody's scheduled right after you, then 30 minutes is 30 minutes. But if we are right mid-conversation and there's like, we're then the schedule, go back on the calendar and schedule more time. Okay, so I don't look at time as way, for me, this is not about a money thing. This is about truly for me paying it forward and learning from the first 3 cohorts on how to best do this with our students to get the most out of it going forward. Right, your cohort number 2, that's part of the reason why the cost is minimal to your organizations or to you as individuals. This is as much learning and development for me to make sure I have the right offering to the businesses going forward. So it is in that sense a 2-way street of continuous learning and input. Be critical. Critical feedback is really important. So never hesitate to say something. And I'll tell you something funny is that I work with my maybe my future daughter-in-law in going forward. She's 90 pounds soaking wet. I'm 6'5", 280 pounds, so rather opposite from where she is. She works on my Instagram account as my graphic designer, content delivery. That's what she went to school for. She wanted to learn how to do this in real life. And I said, listen, here are the reins, have fun with it, right? I don't really know that space all that well. Well, of course, I have time on my hand. I'm starting to dabble a little bit. I figured out how to do it. I post a picture and a quote story. And she actually sends me emails, I need to talk to you. I said, oh, right. I said, I thought that we had an agreement that I was going to do the content and I was going to do the design work. And I would really appreciate it if you don't, I'm executing a plan here. Well, that takes some real conies, right? But that's what we want, right? We want to have the ability to have these difficult conversations about things that we need to do. But very few people actually have the ability to do that. And certainly as a 20-year-old, she has that ability to do it. And I encourage that, right? So the same thing, if you feel something, we have to learn to say it. Don't hold it in. And don't allow people to live rent-free in your head ever. That goes right back to those 4 pillars, right? And we'll talk more about that on a one-to-one basis. So the last thing, the supplies that you will need for the program itself. All of the work that we do in the classroom is on Zoom on Wednesday and Friday. For some reason or another, Google Meet seems to be working well for our one-to-one sessions, and it is linked into my scheduling software. So I'll stick to that. If for some reason you cannot use Google Meet, then we'll work around that as well. All of you can write down my cell phone number. It is 646-208-5217. You can always FaceTime me. You can text me, you can call me. Try to keep it quiet between the hours of 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. I'm not much of a sleeper. So if I accidentally email things early in the morning, disregard that. No need to respond back. Now, all kidding aside, if a certain platform doesn't work, or I saw, Robert, you have arrived home. I love your fish tank in the background. If you cannot make it on Google or Zoom, listen, FaceTime, right? Or use Messenger. I don't really care. It's more important that we have the conversation. We meet on a weekly basis. Then don't let a program stand in the way, right? I'll use great flexibility around that. I would encourage you all to buy a whiteboard, a 4x6 or a 4x8, depending on how much space you have in your departments on the wall, because we will be developing a huddle board that has 4 or 5 different sections to that. In the last class, we ordered them halfway through, and because of all the supply chain issues, they were not delivered on time. And they ended up doing it, you have to overcome that. You can do it with paper, you can do it with Post-it notes, whatever else. But having the huddle board really is helpful to visualize what it is we're trying to do. So everything initially is just right? You're doing it for yourself, the scorecard. But as we go to the program, especially when we start going into team operational rhythm and you're starting to mature the projects you're working on, we're going to do this now on the huddle board in your unit. So everybody gets to see at a glance where we're at. What are we measuring, how we're measuring it, how well are we doing it? And I'll, guide you through all of that stuff. Again, there's no expectation that you will be perfect at this at the end of the 15 weeks. We will go to this forming stage, what we do now. You will enter this storming phase. You'll have days like, oh my God, I understand what he's talking about. And other days like, what the hell, right? What is going on here? But the goal is if you stick with it long enough and you go through the process, you'll get to that norming phase. And out of norming, which is a higher level performance the way you are today, you get to performance. And performance is very different, right? And that is, you have broken the habits and behaviors of today. You have established new action plans. From those actions you take, you deliver new results. And I'll guide you through that. As you buy the whiteboard, make sure you get a pack of dry erasers with different colors, at least a red, yellow, and green. And then get a whole stack of Post-it notes, because you're doing multiple brainstorming sessions, either with yourself or with your team. And of course, having access to printer. Now, I keep a paperless environment. I've been paperless for 3 or 4 years now. So I literally keep one piece of paper and a pen, a piece of scrap paper and a pen, just in case somebody says something, I have to write it down. But I choose not to print anything. But I don't want to tell you what to do. If you feel like you need to print everything because that's your way of learning, everything that is online on Thinkific, you can print out and put it into a binder, and you can make notes on it. Personally, when I go to class, I can write, because the second I start writing, I can't pay attention anymore. And that is really kind of like the second exercise for yourself. I want you to raise your level of awareness and how you learn as an individual. So how many of you are multitaskers? Don't fib, I want to see all those hands. You all think you're multitaskers.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's a moment of honesty. Don't. We're horrible at it. As human beings, we can barely walk and chew gum at the same time. Now, because we're in healthcare, we're almost forced to be multitaskers, right? Because that's our survival chain. But it's not the best way to work. And the reason why that is this, and I want you to really be thoughtful about it, and that's part of the reason why I asked you to be on camera, so you can have eyeballs on the screen. At every distraction, I just saw, Robert, there's a noise in your room that just happened, right? That allowed you to look away for a second, and I see Nicole. Every single distraction, your brain is complex, but simple at the same time. The second you have a distraction, it takes your focus away from what you're doing to something else. But if you have to calculate how many seconds or minutes it takes to get back into focus, that's waste. That's pure waste. And if you accumulate that pure waste over a period of days, you'll see that a lot of time that we do is in recovery, getting back to focus. So for example, anybody in finance here? Or does a lot of spreadsheet work or analysis work? Well, we all do a little bit of that. So
Yeah.
when you are deep in thought in something and you say, listen, I'm a proud leader, I have an open door policy. And right in the middle of your concentrated moment of time, you're working on something and somebody comes knocking on your door and they take you away from what you're working on. And you have that conversation because you're so proud, you want to be able to multitask, you want to be able to work on your stuff, as well as having an open door policy. Well, once the conversation has taken place, which, by the way, that conversation is probably 70, 80% non-value adding, it takes minutes to get back to that focus in order to be able to pick up. Your brain has to go back 3 or 4 steps in order to gain that traction. And then once you get back in line, now the phone rings or the pager goes off or somebody else knocks on the door. So the power of focus is what I want you to learn to work in. Again, that focus 20 minutes is and the reason why I say focus 20 minutes, because that sticks, right? If I say focus 30 minutes, an hour, it doesn't stick. Focus 20 minutes. We are really good at doing things for 20 minutes at a time at great focus, but you need to isolate yourself. So there's a book called The One Thing that if you have time left over, it's a great book to read. Essentially speaking, what the one thing means is what, and I'll teach this in part of the program, is that what is that one thing that I can do in my personal life, professional life that will have a great impact on everything else, but let's do only one thing at a time, truly one thing at a time. That does not mean you don't have to do 10 things in a day. You just need to do those 10 things one at a time. And you do this one times in order of priority. So how many of you have to-do list? Well, take that to-do list with that multitasking that you do and crumble it up and throw it over your shoulder, throw it in the garbage. To-do list just frustrate everybody. Make it a priority list instead. Right? Not everything is weighted equal. Right? We'll talk a lot about the 80-20 rule in life, right? The Pareto rule in life. And I won't get into it today. It's a little technical and I want to show some examples on that at a later time. But we need to learn to act on the things that are the most important to you now and execute in order of priority rather than just a to-do list. Of course, we need to celebrate when we are successful along the way, right? A lot of the things I'm going to talk about is about awareness, about celebrating, about rewarding and recognition, to the point that it's like, what is this guy doing? I want you to, your thought process from the second you get up in the morning to the second you go to bed at night, I want you to reward, recognize, and appreciate yourself and the people that you lead. 6-to-1 ratio, 6 overdoses of appreciation and love against 1 time being stern and firm with the team itself. It's a mindset.